Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast, episode 25.
Welcome to the Out of Order Podcast, your window into the firearms community, exploring those shaping the future of our rights and protecting our lifestyle, laws, legal cases, activism, and self-defense in a candid and honest podcast for our brothers and sisters in arms. Here's your host, James Kalita.
Thanks for tuning in to the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. If you like the show so far, please consider supporting the show by heading over to the site outoforderjameskalita.com, checking out the links to our Amazon account where you can help out the show with no additional cost to yourself, or becoming a Patreon. Today's guest is Andee Reardon. Andee Reardon is a firearms instructor and anti-slavery activist. And now, here's Andee Reardon.
Andee Reardon, welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for coming on. So, Andee, you run an organization called the East Coast School of Safety. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. My business is a business focused on helping people become safer, whether it be by using a firearm or it be by learning some self-defense or using self-defense tools such as pepper spray and other things like that. My kind of motto is self-defense at your comfort level. I find not everybody's comfortable owning a gun, but there's different things that they can do to help themselves become safer. And a lot of times what happens is some of my clients will come to me and learn self-defense, kind of hand-to-hand stuff, maybe start carrying a pepper spray, and then down the line, a lot of times they'll contact me and say, okay, I'm ready for a gun and some training.
Okay, great. So, what inspired you to start this organization?
I've always kind of been one of those safe people, the one that was more prepared than the group of friends I hung out with, or the one that kind of watched out for everybody else. So it's kind of in my character. I was a lifeguard when I was a teenager, and I did a lot of different jobs as I was in high school and college, and a lot of times it revolved around safety. So it's kind of just always been my mindset.
Okay, great. And you're also involved with an organization called Thrive. I think I read you're an anti-slavery activist.
Mm-hmm. So the organization is called Thrive New England. It's a New England-based organization that is fighting human trafficking. And human trafficking happens everywhere all around the globe. And we focus on the human trafficking going on here in New England, and we combat it in a few different ways. We help legislators make better laws to persecute the buyers and the sellers and protect the victims. And we also have a big community that comes together and helps the survivors as they're coming out of the abuse and the trafficking, and give them the resources they need to rebuild their lives.
Oh, wow. That's great. I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize still happens, or happens locally. It's kind of always presented as happening far away, but not something that happens close to home.
Yeah, it's something you think about in, third world kind of countries, but it's actually everywhere. And as the drug epidemic grows, so does human trafficking.
Oh. And is it, do the two sort of overlap? Do you find that the East Coast School of Safety is sort of helps people protect against human trafficking? And
I find that giving the survivors the ability to learn how to use self-defense or how to use a firearm helps them get their power back of being able to protect themselves and live a normal life again. I actually designed one of my self-defense classes specifically for the survivors of abuse and of trafficking because they have certain risks, and I wanted to help them be prepared for them.
Oh, great. And you mentioned survivors of abuse, and you recently testified about a new law that was passed in Maine. Would you tell us about that?
Sure. A few months back, a bill was proposed in Maine. It's kind of been proposed in many states recently after the last tragedy. It's kind of a red flag bill kind of thing, and what it would allow is if someone kind of went to the authorities and said this person is in danger, the government or the local police would have the ability to seize guns and any weapons in the home without due process in court. And so this proposed bill would have been against a few of our constitutional rights. And on behalf of survivors of abuse and trafficking, I went in front of our state and the state legislator and let them know that this was the perfect tool for an abuser to use against the survivor who was trying to get away. And fortunately, a lot of the bill was changed before it actually passed, so it's not going to be able to be used that way, hopefully.
Great. And so for folks that may not have started their journey into situational awareness and safety, what advice would you have for them if they happen to be listening?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say, start looking around. Watch the news and see what kind of crimes are happening around your house, and listen to what's going on in your neighborhood. The drug epidemic is growing, and as it grows, so does theft, so does mugging, so does trafficking. Lots of crimes are increasing just due to the drug increasement around the whole country. There's areas in Maine that always seem to be those good old towns that nothing bad really happened, and there's been a string of robberies in every town that I can tell, and they're usually linked to the drugs. So it's not the same neighborhood that you used to live in when you were a kid, or even the nice neighborhoods here in Maine where nobody locks their doors. It's time to start locking your doors because it's just not the same as it used to be.
And so it seems like you've managed to sort of cross over that barrier. That we have the group of people that think about arming themselves and having that self-defense mindset. But since you're starting out teaching people, with self-defense tools and hand-to-hand combat, how are you reaching people? How are you getting them to start thinking that way?
I think, sadly, probably 80% or more of the people who come to me have either been touched by some type of crime or know somebody who has. And it's kind of a wake-up call where, oh, I guess I need to prepare to protect myself. And that's kind of a sad thing that a lot of times it takes somebody that instant to happen. I've had gun students come in that said, I've been against guns my whole life. I've never touched one. But because this happened to me, now I want one and I need you to train me how to use it.
Wow. I kind of hoped you were going to say that there was some other other way. But yeah, that is.
I do too. And there's a small percentage of people just watching the news and they just seem to realize, it's about time I do something to make myself a little more safer.
Yeah. So you talked about always being the person that, looked out for everyone. Were you always into firearms, or was there something that happened in your life that that got you interested in firearms?
Well, I grew up in a hunting family. Maine is a huge hunting state. So, we had rifles, and since I can remember, I was shooting rifles with my dad. I shot my first pistol, I think, when I was about 7 years old. And guns were just a normal part of our life, and we were taught gun safety from a really early age. I took my hunter safety course when I think I was 11 or 12. So guns have always been kind of part of my life. I didn't really think about them in a self-defense aspect, and if something were to happen, what could I do? Even physically, I can't fight somebody while holding a baby, or I can't chase somebody down and leave a child behind if they decide to take one of my kids. So it was kind of an instant where nothing really bad happened, but I thought, I really need to have something to protect myself and my kids.
Yeah, that's true, and it's definitely good to have that mindset. So you mentioned you have some events coming up for women?
Yeah, I'm volunteering this weekend for the Lincoln County Rifle Club Ladies' Day, and I love doing Ladies' Days with different rod and gun clubs It's a great experience to get a lot of other women interested or help them learn more of what they already know. And we're just going to show up and have a bunch of guns and let women try them and help them with, whatever they want help with, and answer questions, because a lot of women have a lot of questions about where to start and what to do. So it's a really good experience for me to help out with that. And then next month, I'm really excited because we're going to have our first Women Who Shoot in Maine and New Hampshire retreat. And it's just going to be a lot of women camping out in the middle of Maine and shooting lots of different kinds of guns and having good experiences and making friendships and all that fun stuff.
Oh, wow. That does sound like a great event. And and you said you'll have a place to shoot out there, or just camping and bonding?
We're actually really blessed because I have a good friend named Jeff Zimba, who's known as the Big Shooterist on the YouTube world, and he has allowed us to just take over his facility over the long weekend, so we'll be able to be camping right on the range, and we can wake up and shoot and have pistol and rifle ranges right there available for us.
Oh, wow. That is great. So how has it been being a woman in the firearms industry? I think a lot of people consider it a male-dominated world. How's your experience been? How have you been treated?
Well, I was a little unsure when I decided to go from just self-defense and then move on to firearms. And, I was a little nervous because I didn't know how it would be accepted. But I was pleasantly surprised. Everybody in my area is very kind and helpful, and everybody thinks what I do is great, which is awesome, and it boosts my ego. And I've come to find out that there is this huge community of women in the industry all over the United States, and Facebook is a great gathering place for us, and there's different Facebook groups and stuff for us to contact each other, and it's just a great community, whether it be male oriented or just female oriented. I've made a lot of awesome friends, and it just keeps getting better. So I really love what I do, and I love the community.
Great. And so you do a lot of women's events and bringing women into shooting. Any common questions that come up, or any tips that you might have for people thinking about getting into it?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns for women is, how do I carry? Because women are so different from men. We don't wear the same type of pants every day, and we don't wear a belt every day, and we dress differently than men. We kind of dress to whatever occasion we're doing. And one of the fun things that I get to do is when I do a concealed carry clinic or a concealed carry consult is just showing women what options are available. The industry has grown huge when it comes to concealed carry products for women, whether it be holsters or guns or anything like that. And it's just really great to share that information with women who just have no idea how to even start and see it click for them, find the holster that they like, and, find out later down the road when they message me, hey, I've been concealed carrying for a month now and I love it. And it's really fun. And I think it's great that there's so many new products coming out. There's some great ones, there's some not so great ones, but at the concealed carry clinics that I host, a lot of the women will bring what they love and bring what they hate, and we get to try it out before we buy it and just talk about the pros and cons of different things, which is really helpful.
Yeah, I imagine. As a guy, I find holster shopping frustrating, and I do wear the same type of clothes every day, so I can only imagine it's even more frustrating when you add all those extra variables. Yeah. Let's see. So, any other common things that come up?
I think another huge common thing that comes up would be keeping guns safe from kids. A lot of the people I teach are either grandparents or parents, and they want a gun in the home, but they're scared that if there's a gun in the home, then their children will be in danger. And so I like to give out a lot of good resources for the parents to help them, teach their kids, because I believe education is the biggest safety factor you can give your children. Start them early, start them learning the gun rules, start them learning what they're supposed to do if they see a gun and you're not there. And I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, that's true. And I have a lot of conflicting opinions in the gun world. A lot of times people will propose gun control laws that require keeping guns away from kids. And on the surface, it sounds good, but like you're saying, training is really important because at a certain age, they're old enough to handle firearms. And, there's been, not a lot, but there's been many instances where children have used firearms defensively when somebody invaded the home and the parents were out. And I think, well, if they had the law that New Jersey has, those parents would be going to jail because their kids had access to the firearm. And meanwhile, if they hadn't, they may have been, injured or killed.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were able to, to kind of avoid that catastrophic new law that was proposed a few months ago. I think where I'm from in New Jersey, a lot of people are frustrated with gun control, and one of their solutions is to move. But how is gun control activism in Maine? How are you always able? Is it the population, or is it just the active gun community that helps you keep those laws at bay?
We have two awesome groups. One would be the Sportsman Alliance of Maine, and the other one would be Gun Owners of Maine. These are two organizations that work super hard at protecting our rights. Gun Owners of Maine really stepped up to the plate when that proposed bill was recently brought up, and we showed up at the State House in so many numbers that people were flooded into the hallways and extra rooms because there were so many of us there to testify against it. And the last time we had to vote for a gun law, it was question 3, which would have been universal background checks, which passed in a lot of other states. And it was a really close run, and it really was won because of grassroots people just working really hard and educating people what it really meant, because these laws are really tricky to read, and the way they word them on the ballot is very confusing. So we had people just talking to anybody who would listen and just letting them know, hey, you don't want to vote for this, and this is why. And it came close down the wire, but we won, and it's really a testament to how hard Gun Owners of Maine and the Sportsman Alliance of Maine really worked together.
Yeah, that is really impressive. As I know in my own efforts, sometimes it's just hard to find people to listen, and a lot of times it's just dismissed as I'll use quote unquote bunny ear quotes NRA rhetoric, and but very impressive that you guys were able to get that message out there. So I've been asking all of my guests if there are any books that they recommend for gun owners to read, either gun-related or training or liberty.
Well, the last books that I just picked up that I thought were great comes from a man by the name of the Pew Pew Jew. He's a very good gun activist, and he actually made a couple books for kids, which I thought were great. And one is called Safety On. It's the introduction to the world of firearms for children, and it's kind of looked at through a child's eye of, I watch my dad be safe, and I want to be safe like him, and it goes through what he does to be safe, which I read it to my kids, and they've read it to me, and they thought it was a great book. So I thought that was wonderful. And he also wrote another book called The ABCs of Guns, which is just really fun if you're a kid or you're an adult. So those are the two recent books that I've read that I really thought were great.
Great. And so we mentioned kids a few times. Is there an age that you recommend getting kids involved in firearms?
Honestly, I think it all depends on the child and your comfort level. I have a lot of people ask me, how old does my kid have to be to take a lesson? And my answer is if they can follow instructions and they can be safe, then any age is great. My youngest son started shooting when he was 4. So,
oh, wow. All right.
As long as they can listen to your directions and you're right there next to them making sure they're listening, then I think they're old enough. And just make it fun, and don't take them to the range and keep them there for 8 hours when they're bored out of their mind. Just keep it fun and keep it simple. Yeah,
that's great. And 4, is he still into it? Is he going to be like a competitive shooter?
I don't know. I hope so. Yeah, my middle son was just asking the other day, he's like, when are we going to the range again? When are we shooting again? So they do enjoy it. We usually will bring some fun targets, either zombies or we'll blow up some balloons and pop balloons, or just we keep it fun and we keep it simple and we keep it focused on how to be safe.
Great. Well, Andee, I thank you so much for being on the show. Are there any parting words you'd like to share with our listeners?
If you're interested in firearms or you're interested in training, I'd say go for it. Just find some reputable person and take some classes. Classes are great no matter what level of skill you are. I continue to increase my knowledge and looking forward to even more classes myself, because I feel like I'm a better instructor if I learn all I can, and nobody knows everything.
Yeah, great. And where should people try and find you online?
You can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram and my website, which is eastcoastschoolofsafety.com.
Great. Well, Andee, I thank you so much for calling and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for calling, James.
Thanks for tuning in to the Out of Order Gun Rights Podcast. Please head over to the show notes page, Out of Order James Kalita /25, and we'll see you next time.